you should tout yourself to the students, because your students have a sense of ownership of their teacher. And when their teacher's successful, they'll brag about it. They'll say, my teacher did this or my teacher did that. They'll feel more willing to learn from that teacher. It'll get home to the parents, and the parents will be more willing to work with the teacher. They'll feel more confident knowing that their child's teacher has won an award, and so it really is a sense of community. And that's why I said earlier that I felt like I was being lifted up by my students, because they realized that they had a hand in it. And I always say to them, I can only be as good a teacher as you are students.
Now, your subject is history.
Absolutely.
Is this a required subject?
Not nearly as required as I wish it would be, but yes, it's required.
There are certain subjects that they have to have.
Technically, today, because of what the Florida legislature did last year, you can graduate high school without taking any American history at all. It's just listed as social studies credits. So before last year, you had to take American history. Now it's just, I believe it's 3 credits. It's changed so recently.
How do the students feel about history? Are they receptive to it, or is it something that they could live without or pay no attention to?
If you teach history the way I believe it should be taught, which is in the form of stories, then it is by far their most favorite subject. They are talking about it in the hallways. They do independent research to answer questions that you've brought up in class, and it is always a topic on their minds because it's in the community. You have the Alamo just came out a few months ago, so you have movies out there and people talking about history all the time, and when the kids realize how much fun it is and how exciting it is, they want to learn it.
You really have a reputation for passion in your teaching, and tell us about some of the books that you've authored.
Well, I have 2 basic books, or book lines, I guess you should say. My most popular one, and the one that's actually published, the other line has not yet been published, is called The Young Heroes of History. And it's a whole series. I like to call it John Jakes for Kids. And each book is about a different member in a family.
And tell us some of the titles of these books.
Okay, well, again, the series is Young Heroes of History, the idea that the kids are heroes just by being themselves. And the first book is called Send 'Em South, and they all take place either just before the Civil War or just afterwards. Then we've got On the Trail of John Brown's Body, Off to Fight, Nowhere to Turn, No Girls Allowed.
Tell me about the book that you've titled No Girls Allowed.
I think that's one of my favorite books, mainly because you've got war going on. You've got
This is the Civil War.
The Civil War, right. Again, it's all tied together in that way. You can read each book on its own, but you can also read it as a whole series. The main character is also in the first book as an older sister. And what I love about this book is you've got Antietam, you've got Clara Barton, and in the middle of the country just trying to survive and fighting amongst itself, you've got women's rights. You've got these 2 girls who want to help out. They're not allowed to help out. Women aren't allowed to fight. Women aren't even allowed to be nurses. People probably didn't even realize that men were nurses before then. And so you've got one girl dressing up as a boy, trying to show she's equal, and another girl who does the traditional route, and they end up having a fight in the middle of the book about, well, how does a girl prove she's equal? And I said all this amidst the Civil War, so I have a lot of fun with that.
Now, not only do you write books, but your passion takes you on the lecture circuit. Tell us about that.
Actually, I just got an invitation this morning from the Phi Delta Kappa Society, which is the preeminent education society in Pinellas County. And the nice thing about this award is that it has allowed me to go out and talk to different groups. To Rotary clubs. I've talked several times with the Sons of the American Revolution, the Daughters of the Confederacy, and when I go out and talk with these groups is I mainly talk about why American history is so valuable to a functioning democracy, to the survival of our country, and why it is also in such a sorry state. And I also do really all kinds of things. I did Pearl Harbor.
Recently, you did one on Pearl Harbor
Right.
at the Dunedin Public Library.
Right.
Who sponsored that?
I guess I would call it a committee, the Intergenerational Committee. that they had a whole bunch of activities going on that week.
Your title was, Did FDR Really Know?
It was very interesting because I did have one woman afterwards who did not like my lecture, and she said I shouldn't talk that way about Roosevelt, because of course Roosevelt, everybody who lived during his presidency held him in very high esteem. And I did not criticize Roosevelt so much as what I was trying to talk about was that I wanted to make sure that the people who lived through World War II and those people who lost relatives in Pearl Harbor and in World War II realized that Roosevelt did not know. I was basically, my intention was to dismiss all these rumors that Roosevelt did not know about Pearl Harbor.
Did you relate it to present-day occurrences?
Absolutely. Compared it to September 11th, said what was similar to it, how it was different. Talked about the responsibility of a president, and perhaps this is where this lady who was there did not like what I was talking about, is what could Roosevelt have done differently perhaps in relating to what could our president do differently in similar foreign policy situations.
All right, so what are your aspirations? You've been here in Dunedin for how long?
I think 8 years, 7 or 8 years I've been teaching here at Dunedin High School. Well, one of my big projects, for lack of a better word, is the Pinellas History Fair. And I started that here in Dunedin my very first year. It's grown to include about 6 or 8 schools now, and I want someday to see every student in Pinellas County someday do this history fair. It's a nationwide program, and I would just love to see that go off somewhere. I don't know if I've personally taken it as far as I can go, and I need someone else higher up. Are you listening, Dr. Wilcox? To take it any further. But that's one of my major goals. I'd love to see my series do more, although I have learned that writing books is as much marketing as it is writing, and I'm not about to travel to California and Kansas and all these other places when I'm going to miss my daughter's soccer games. So being part of a community is very important to me and my family as well.
Well, Alan Kay, we congratulate you on being honored as the Pinellas County Educator of the Year, and for all of you parents out there, isn't it nice to know that here's a high school teacher in Dunedin who has a passion for teaching our young people. This is Gus Cooper for Spotlight on Dunedin.
Live from Hard Rock Live at Universal Studios City Walk in Orlando, it's the Florida Department of Education Burdine's Macy's Teacher of the Year Awards. Tonight we will learn who's been chosen from among Florida's 130,000 public school teachers to receive this prestigious award. 72 outstanding educators from all parts of the state will be saluted in this special ceremony, and one will be named the Sunshine State's top teacher. Now, please welcome our host for the evening, Emmy Award-winning journalist and news anchor, Deborah Norville.
Hi, everybody. Wow, this is so exciting for me to be here, and what a special night. Thank you so much, and good evening to everyone. You know, this is such an exciting night because it makes us all think about somebody very special in our lives. And most of us have a teacher that we can think of as having been particularly meaningful. But how many of us can say our teacher led us to our career? I can. I was your typical smart aleck fourth grader, interested in everything and eager to learn it right away. I was always the kid who had their hand up in the air asking, "How come? How come?" Well, Mrs. Louise Eddings, knew very well how come, and she was prepared to tell me and the rest of the class the answer. But I never gave her a chance. My hand was always going up in the air, my bottom always squirming anxiously in my chair. And then finally one day Mrs. Eddings said, "Debbie, that's a very good question. Why don't you go to the library and do a report on that so we'll all know the answer?" Well, it took more than one report and it took more than one trip to the library before finally I realized what Mrs. Eddings was doing. She was getting me out of her hair so she could teach. But she did something even more valuable. She taught me that the answers to most of the questions that I had were answers that I could find out on my own. And thanks to Mrs. Eddings, I learned the joy of questioning and researching and discovery. And those skills that I first started developing back in 4th grade are the ones that I depend on every day now as a national journalist. 10 years ago, I had the real treat of thanking Mrs. Eddings on national television when she was a guest with me on the Sally Jesse Raphael show. It touched my heart in ways that I think many of you here and many of you at home can appreciate, that I was able to say to a very special teacher, thank you for a very special gift. And that's what we're here tonight to do, to say thank you and to recognize the incredible ways that teachers here in Florida are doing remarkable things to open the doors for their students. During our program tonight, we're going to be meeting up close and personal the best of Florida's educators. And in just about an hour from now, we will crown the 2005 Florida Department of Education Burdines Macy's Teacher of the Year. Of course, only one individual will be awarded that distinction, but it's an honor that could easily be bestowed on every single teacher here tonight. The advances being made in technology, in science, in the arts, and so many other fields are all possible because of the outstanding teachers who are out there providing students the tools they need to achieve their aspirations. The 5 finalists to whom we'll be paying tribute tonight are all dedicated individuals whose enthusiasm and whose compassion really have made a difference in the lives of their students, our kids. Throughout the program tonight, we're also going to be saluting the 67 other district winners from across the state who've made terrific contributions to teaching. Earlier tonight, these exceptional educators were honored at a ceremony during which Burdines Macy's presented each of them with a cash award. And by the way, this is the 16th year that Burdines Macy's has partnered with the Florida Department of Education, which marks the company's $1.6 million level in cash contributions for Florida teachers and Florida schools. The finalists, yeah, that is something to clap about, isn't it? The finalists that you'll be meeting tonight have been chosen from more than 130,000 public school teachers here in Florida, chosen by a committee comprised of their peers, by principals, parents, and business leaders.
This program many times over to see yourself, but also to find out more of the behind-the-scenes people that have helped out in the Pinellas County Education Foundation over the years. And right now, at this time, it's my privilege to introduce from the Wintner Companies, the chairman of the Pinellas Education Foundation,
County Outstanding Educator of the Year, to join us and share a few memories. At this time, I'd like to invite the 2004 Pinellas County Outstanding Educator of the Year to join us and share a few memories of his year. Please welcome from Dunedin High School, Alan Kay.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. I'm really looking forward to what you're bringing to Pinellas County. Before I get started, I made a promise to my littlest daughter. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Josh, Rachel, Mom.